It's a big week here at 24/7 Sports because, well, we welcome a new family member, and that is PowerMizzou.com. And with that, we welcome in our friend, recruiting editor Sean Williams from PowerMizzou.com because it's time for a little bit of a Missouri vibe check. Sean, how do you do, my friend? And we're going to start with a feel-good meter. I'm going to ask you the question since we don't really get to talk a lot of Mizzou, and we have a new team site here. Mizzou right now, they rank number 16 in the 24/7 Sports Composite Team rankings. They are number 19 in the 24/7 Sports Talent Team Composite. That is the highest it's ever been in Missouri history. Sean, the question I have for you, what is the feel-good meter right now when it comes to Eli Drinkwitz in just recruiting as a whole at Mizzou right now?
I mean, under Eli Drinkwitz, it's at a historic level right now. So, I mean, the vibes are really good. The fans are really excited. Obviously, Missouri's undefeated right now. They're in the top 10. Keep things rolling. I think the measuring stick for them is getting into college football playoff this year. And I think if they do that, things will continue to roll positively in the recruiting ranks for Missouri going forward.
Sean, you mentioned Missouri undefeated right now. Big one on Saturday against Texas A&M. And I think it's a perfect question I have for you, right? We are officially 10 weeks before the early signing period. I think we're calling it signing day now. That's the official term behind the scenes at 24/7 Sports. Cooper said it, the class right now, right number 16. They just added a promising tight end prospect a few days ago in Dakota Terrell. Big giant out of Oklahoma. Who else is in play for Missouri? Because they're going to have some momentum, I would think, if they can continue to be in the conversation for the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think in terms of just guys that are still out there, uncommitted and committed elsewhere, some guys that they're really looking at, kind of a trio. Andrew Babalola is kind of the big one out of the Kansas City area. They've been recruiting him really hard. Drinkwitz just took his helicopter over there to watch his first game of the season. So I know that made a strong impression on him. A lot of buzz around Auburn, Michigan, Stanford with him as well. So we'll see what happens there. I know he said he's kind of been a little bit erratic on his when he's going to make a decision. He did say recently he's going to make it at least by the end of his regular season, which is in late October. So we'll see how that goes down, but I think Missouri's made a positive impression on Babalola, and we'll see if he wants to stay close to home and play for the Tigers. And I think a couple other guys that are committed elsewhere that they're trying to go after is Jeremiah Jones. He's a tight end that's committed to Nebraska recently. You mentioned Dakota Terrell just committed, but get the feeling that Missouri really wants two tight ends in this class now. Things, obviously change in the recruiting outlook for classes. So they got Dakota Terrell. They got him on campus recently for the Buffalo game. They've had Jones on campus twice in late July, and then he was recently in for the Boston College game as well. So they really like Jeremiah Jones and his playmaking ability at tight end. Obviously, at high school level, he's such a playmaker. He lines up wide and everything, plays safety as well. So he's another target that they're really after. He spoke very positively on Missouri, and I think that's a prospect they can potentially flip down the road, considering how their season will go if it goes well. And another big offensive target that they're after that is committed elsewhere is Jacob Washington. He's the current Michigan wide receiver commitment. Intriguing kind of storyline here is he actually took an official visit to Missouri back in the summer in June. And at the time, after he took his official to Missouri there, he said, hey, Missouri's my top school, but that was before he went to Michigan. And eventually took his official to Michigan, ended up committing to the Wolverines there. Obviously, still looking around. He did tell us recently that, he's still talking to Missouri staff, is hearing them out, and he's planning to come back to campus and watch Missouri play Oklahoma in November. So that's one to keep an eye on as well.
Sean, I want to follow up on Andrew Babalola, the five-star offensive tackle, one of the best in the country. We haven't heard Missouri really linked to Andrew Babalola a lot. It's been a lot of Auburn, been a lot of Michigan, and with Stanford early on as well. How would you handicap the chances here for Missouri and Andrew Babalola?
Handicap, I would say decently good. I don't know where you can classify that, but I think obviously the buzz here is kind of like, Michigan, Auburn. I think Stanford's got some appeal too because of academics and things like that. but everything we're hearing from Missouri's side, they feel that they're really in the race here. So that's why I'm kind of like a little bit more optimistic than maybe most people, just from what we're hearing on Missouri's side of things. And obviously, Drinkwitz is showing that he's trying to, press all the right buttons going into his game and making a strong impression there. So we'll kind of see how that all plays out.
Coop, man, if they get Babs, that would fire me up. We wrote about it on powermissouri.com. Just some our thoughts on the recruiting class. The strength seems to be that offensive line. Sean, I wanted to ask you two kind of recruitments that I think flew under the radar from a national perspective, but in the eyes of the 105, they were major, major wins for the Tigers, for Drinkwitz, and that's that. The first one, Matt Zollers, the quarterback commit. We saw him at the Elite 11 finals. He had a nasty broken ankle, out for the rest of his senior season, but you can still see the upside with him. He was a big win. Alabama, Georgia, both involved there. And then the other one, Donovan Olugbode, I think he's one of the more ready-to-play wide receivers in this 2025 cycle at IMG Academy. Huge rankings riser for us. How did Missouri kind of get both of those guys in the boat? I know they've recruited well in the past locally in the Show Me State, but these are guys, Zollers up in Pennsylvania, Olugbode all the way down at IMG Academy. Does Drinkwitz have those chops as a recruiter? I feel like that's not discussed enough.
Yeah, I think it goes a long way. I mean, you talk about Zollers, from Pennsylvania. I mean, Missouri hasn't had a recruit sign with them from Pennsylvania since 2013. So, that's not an area of the country that they really recruit really hard. So, it was really big. Zollers is kind of one of those, they just really loved his film, got in on him really early. And the biggest thing with him is getting him on campus twice during the spring. That really helped, just making an impression there and, just kind of showing him what he can do in that offense and why he's kind of the perfect fit for them. So that was big for them. And kind of the same thing with Olugbode too. Both of those guys, they were able to get them in on campus during the spring, make a really big impression that way, and then get them back on official visits in the summer. So, I think those, getting in on those guys, building those relationships early, and then being able to get those guys on campus during the spring and kind of show them, the practice reps and things like that and how coaches coach their players and kind of build that rapport. I think that really helped out in those two situations and others in the class as well.
Sean, I don't know if a top 20 class can be sneaky, and Missouri's sitting right there at number 16, knocking on the door of a top 15 class. I wanted to ask you, out of all the additions that they have, and there's a long list of guys that we really like in this class, but is there maybe a commit that doesn't really get the headlines as some of these guys at the top of a board, as a Olugbode or as a Jack Lang, and you can continue on, but is there a guy or two that has caught your eye?
Yeah, I know. We had Gabe had Alan True and Tom Loy on yesterday. They both mentioned Jason King, but I'm going to go with Mark Manfred, the cornerback out of Sprayberry, down in Georgia. I mean, he's having a really good I loved him whenever he committed, but his senior film is really good so far. I mean, he's one of those guys that, I always like cornerbacks or DBs. They can play both sides of the ball, in high school, and are very productive on both sides of the ball as well. He plays wide receiver for his team. I think he's got close to 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think he's got 27 tackles in the secondary and 5 pass breakups. I mean, he's doing a really good job on both sides of the ball. When you're that productive as a senior on both sides of the ball, I think that kind of translates well to being a good college player.
Coop, I'm a big fan of Mark Manfred. He was a standout at the overtime OT7. I don't know if you've dug into him, but certainly a lot to like. And I think what stands out about this Missouri recruiting class last year, really heavy with the defensive additions and some notable ones, Williams and Winery, Elias Williams, the defensive lineman. This year in 2025, it seems like they've gone more towards the offense with getting Zollers, Olugbode, and again, that offensive line class. We haven't even talked about Lamont Rogers, right? I think he's the left tackle of the future there.
Yeah, Lamont, another one, is kind of goes back to, the high level of recruiting, getting those guys in during the spring, making an impression while they're on campus and, kind of getting a commitment from them during the summer. That's kind of what happened with Rogers as well. And Rogers kind of, he's one of those ones you're going to have to fight. I think he's going to actually be at Texas A&M this weekend for the Texas A&M Missouri game. Obviously, that's at A&M. Not a good thing for Missouri, but even though Missouri will be on the field, but he's one of those guys you're going to have to fight for. A&M's really in the mix. And, at it'd be kind of big for him. But yeah, I mean, like he's going to be prototypical, just tackle guy that's going to probably come in and I don't know, he might make a pretty strong impression right away. But A&M's making a big push. I think the biggest thing for Missouri is trying to get him back on campus during the season and get him in for a game. I think that I'll feel a little bit more confident that Missouri can hold on to him if that happens.
Sean, we'll get you out of here on this question. We talked about the momentum that Missouri has on the field and off the field as well, equally. How high is the ceiling there, just in terms of how high you think Eli Drinkwitz can take this program? We know what they're capable of on the field, but off the field, is this a top 10 recruiting program? Do you see that in the sights over the next 2 to 3 years?
I think it's very possible. I mean, I think, with anything, especially with recruiting, it's really about performance on the field. And like I said, their goal this year is to go to the playoff. And if they can go to the playoff and make a run, win a game or two, I mean, I think that would be huge for their program. And, top kids is take notice. They're taking notice anyway. I mean, Drinkwitz has done a great job recruiting and he knows the game. So, but I think if wins trickle down and they make a little playoff run, that'll definitely help their efforts in the future. And top 10 recruiting classes might be a thing that Missouri is kind of consistent with. I mean, they're at historic peaks right now. There's always room for improvement. If you can get in the top 10 consistently, though, then that makes you pretty good.
Sean Williams, we appreciate you stopping by. That is Sean Williams, recruiting editor over at powermizzou.com. Sean, thanks a lot, guys. Just a reminder, you can visit powermizzou.com, 75% off annual subscriptions right now. Deal runs out tomorrow. Make sure you get over to powermizzou.com. We are very excited to have those guys on board. They're definitely going to make us better. A lot more Missouri talk in the future.